Two cowboys brooded quietly until a mistaken frontier letter pulled a widow and her daughter into. The sun was low over Dry Gulch, and the whole frontier town looked tired. Dust moved slowly through the empty street. The old metal signs creaked in the wind. A broken service drone lay near the water tower, half buried in red dirt. Far away, cargo engines growled across the plains like angry thunder. Nothing about the evening was new. Nothing about it was kind. Outside the Rust Cup Cantina, two men sat in silence. Most people in Dry Gulch knew better than to disturb them. Elias Vaughan sat with his chair tilted back against the wall, hat pulled low, one hand resting near the worn grip of his sidearm. He looked calm, but there was always something hard in his face, like he spent too many years expecting trouble and had never found a reason to stop. His coat was old frontier leather, patched in 3 places, burned in one. He had the look of a man who fixed things only when he had to. Beside him sat Cade Mercer. Cade was broader, rougher, and even quieter. He leaned forward with his arms on his knees, staring down the street as if he was waiting for the town itself to make a mistake. A metal cup of cold coffee sat untouched by his boot. He had scars across one hand and a way of holding still that made people nervous. Some men looked dangerous because they talked too much. Cade looked dangerous because he did not need to talk at all. They had been sitting there for nearly an hour. The cantina door opened behind them, and warm yellow light spilled over the porch. Old Mira, the owner, stepped out with a rag in one hand and a tired look in her eyes. "You two planning to sit there all night again?" she asked. Neither man answered at first. Then Cade said, "Maybe." Mira snorted. "You brood too much." Elias gave the smallest shrug. "Town's quiet." Town's always quiet before something stupid happens. That got half a smile out of Cade, but only for a second. Mira looked at them both, then shook her head and went back inside. The door shut. The street went silent again. Dry Gulch was one of those places at the edge of settled space where people came when they wanted to disappear. Some came to work. Some came to hide. Some came because they had nowhere else left to go. The law came late to places like this. And mercy came even later. Elias and Cade had once been lawmen. A long time ago, people said their names with respect. Later, people said them with fear. Now most people just said them softly, if they said them at all. No one in Dry Gulch knew the full story. They only knew enough. 2 former frontier marshals. Too many gunfights. Too many graves. Too many things they no longer spoke about. The wind shifted. Elias lifted his head slightly. Cade noticed. "What?" Elias looked up at the sky. "Hear that?" At first there was only wind and distant engine noise. Then came a sharp buzzing sound, uneven and weak. A courier drone dropped over the rooftops, spinning badly. It was one of the old government models, small and narrow, built for long-distance delivery across rough frontier land. It should have flown straight. Instead, it shook in the air like something inside it was broken. Cade watched it wobble over the main street. "That thing's dying." The drone gave one last broken whine, clipped the edge of a lamppost, and crashed into the dirt about 20 feet away. Dust jumped up around it. Neither man moved for a second. Then Elias stood. He crossed the porch slowly, boots pressing into the red soil. Cade stayed seated, watching him. The drone lay on its side, one rotor bent. Its outer shell cracked open. A weak blue light blinked near the front, then faded. Elias crouched and turned it over. "What's it carrying?" Cade asked. Elias brushed dust off the cargo lock. "Message case." "Address?" "Hard to read." Cade rose at last and walked over. By the time he reached him, Elias had already forced open the latch. Inside was a slim data slate wrapped in a weather seal. Old style, personal, not official freight, not business records, not station updates. The kind of thing people sent when they did not trust public channels. Cade looked at the broken drone. Must have come a long way. Elias turned the slate in his hand. The front carried a scratched delivery tag. The last line was partly burned away. To EV, the rest was gone. Cade frowned. "Maybe it is yours." Elias's eyes narrowed. "No." "How do you know?" "Because no one writes to me. That was true enough. Elias had no family left on Kestrel 9. No known friends. No partners besides Cade. And Cade never sent messages when he could walk 10 steps and speak. Elias pressed the activation mark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the slate flickered to life. A woman appeared on the screen. The recording was poor quality. Static lines crossed her face. The room behind her was dark, lit only by a weak emergency lamp. She looked pale and exhausted, with dust on her clothes and fear in her eyes. One arm was wrapped protectively around a young girl sitting beside her. The child could not have been older than 9. The woman swallowed before speaking. If this reaches anyone, if anyone sees this at all, please listen. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. My name is Mara Ellison. I live at the outer farms near the Black Ridge line. My husband Daniel was taken 3 nights ago. They told us he died defending the north fence. She paused and her face tightened. I know that was a lie. The girl pressed closer to her side. Mara looked off-screen for a second, as if she had heard something beyond the room. Then she lowered her voice. They came after dark. Not raiders. Not settlers. I don't know what they are, only that they were the shapes of men and smiled like they knew us. Her breathing grew faster. They asked questions about our routines, about the farms, about the relays, about my daughter. Cade's expression changed. Only a little, but Elias saw it. Mara continued. Daniel sent one message before they took him. He said if I had any chance left, I should send this to Dry Gulch, to a man who still remembered what it meant to stand between a monster and a helpless person. Elias's jaw tightened. Mara looked directly into the screen now, and for a moment it felt as if she were looking at him. I don't know if your name was given to me by mistake or mercy. I don't know if you still care, but they're coming back. The shield dome is failing. The local repeater is dead. We have no transport, no backup, and nowhere safe to run. She pulled the child a little closer. My daughter's name is Lyra. She has done nothing wrong. Please, if there is still any good left in this world, do not let them take her. The recording crackled. A set of coordinates flashed on screen. Then came a sound in the background, a heavy metallic knock. Mara froze. The child looked toward the darkness behind the camera. Another knock came, slower this time. Mara reached forward in a panic. They're here early. The recording ended. The screen went black. The street was silent again. Cade let out a slow breath. Could be a trap. Elias said nothing. Cade looked at him. Outer farms are 6 hours from here. Maybe more in bad light. By the time we get there, the place could be empty. Still no answer. Cade shifted his weight. And whoever sent that message knew Dry Gulch, knew enough to name a man without naming him fully. That bothers me. Elias finally handed him the slate. Cade watched the frozen black screen for a second, then shut it off. Say something, he muttered. Elias stared toward the far horizon, where the land stretched flat and endless beneath the red sky. He did remember what it meant. That was the problem. Years ago, before Dry Gulch, before silence had become easier than sleep, he and Cade had ridden across worlds wearing the badge of the frontier marshals. They had answered calls from mining camps, border towns, broken colonies, lost convoy lines. They had seen what desperate people became when law vanished. They had seen worse things, too. Things without names. Things men created. Things men invited in because they thought they could control them. Too many times. They arrived just after the killing ended. Too many times. Someone had begged for help and received only silence. There were ghosts behind Elias's eyes. Cade knew them all. That was why they did not take jobs anymore. That was why they did not pick sides. That was why they sat outside the cantina every evening and let the frontier pass them by. Cade rubbed a hand over his face. We are not marshals. Elias kept looking outward. I know. We are not heroes either. I know that too. Cade waited. Then he asked a real question. So, why are you thinking about going? Elias answered without turning. Because she asked. Cade almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. A lot of people ask. Not like that. The wind pushed dust along the street again. A sheet of loose metal somewhere in town slapped against a wall. Cade knew that tone in Elias's voice. Calm. Certain. Difficult. He hated that tone. You realize, Cade said, that if this is bait, we are riding straight into it. Elias nodded once. Then whoever said it better hope they're ready. Cade looked at him for a long second, then glanced up at the darkening sky. One by one, the first cold stars were coming out. He hated trouble. He hated old causes. He especially hated it when Elias decided to listen to the part of himself he had buried years ago. But he hated one thing more than all of that, leaving frightened people alone. Cade took the slate and tucked it into his coat. I want on record that this is a bad idea. Elias finally turned toward him. Most of ours are. That doesn't make me feel better. It shouldn't. For the first time that evening, a small shadow of life returned to Cade's face. Not joy, not peace, just a rough shape of purpose. He jerked his chin toward the stables at the far end of the street. We taking the sand runners or the crawler? Sand runners are faster. Crawler carries more ammo. Elias thought for half a second. Sand runners. Cade sighed. Of course. They started toward the stable yard. Behind them, the cantina door opened again. Mira leaned out, eyes moving from one man to the other. That look means you idiots are leaving town, she said. No charge for the coffee? Cade asked. I'll charge your ghost if you don't come back. Neither man replied. Myra's expression softened. Where? Black Ridge Outer Farms. Elias said. She grew still. I heard a relay whisper about that place this morning. Then the signal died. Cade glanced at her. Anything useful? Mira hesitated. Only this. The whisper said the farms went quiet all at once. Not attacked, not burning, just quiet. That settled over the three of them like a colder wind. Elias gave a short nod and kept walking. At the stables, the two sand runners waited in their charging racks. Long-legged desert bikes, built to skim over rock and dust with more speed than comfort. Cade began checking fuel cells and ammo storage while Elias strapped a Frontier rifle across his back. No wasted words. No wasted movement. This was an old dance. When Cade finished loading the second bike, he looked over and saw Elias standing still for a moment, one hand resting on the saddle. You're thinking again, Cade said. Elias mounted up. Dangerous habit. Cade climbed onto his own bike. Last chance to change your mind. Elias powered on the engine. The machine growled to life beneath him. He looked once toward the dark horizon where the coordinates waited. Then he said, Too late. The bikes shot out of the stable yard in a blast of red dust. Dry gulch faded behind them. Far ahead, beyond broken plains and dead relay towers, Mara Ellison sat in a failing shelter with her daughter in her arms, listening to strange footsteps above her ceiling. And somewhere in the night, something that wore the shape of a man turned toward the open desert and smiled, because the letter had been delivered. And whether by mistake, fate, or design, the two men riding toward Black Ridge had just entered a hunt they did not yet understand. The desert of Kestrel, 9 was never truly empty. It only looked that way. Elias Vaughan and Cade Mercer rode fast across the open land, their sand runners cutting through the red dust like blades. The engines roared beneath them, loud enough to scare off most living things. But not everything out here feared noise. Some things listened. The sky had turned darker now. The twin suns were gone, leaving only a dim purple glow on the horizon. Stars spread slowly above them, cold and distant. Cade rode slightly ahead, eyes scanning left and right. Elias followed, steady and focused, his mind replaying the message again and again. The woman's voice, the fear, the knock. Something about it did not feel like a simple attack. After 2 hours of riding, Cade slowed down. Elias pulled beside him. What is it? Cade pointed ahead. A relay tower stood in the distance, tall, thin, and broken. They approached carefully. The tower had once been used to send signals across the frontier, connecting farms, outposts, and towns like Dry Gulch. Now it leaned to one side, its lights dead. The metal around its base was twisted, like something had pulled it apart with force. Elias stepped off his bike and walked closer. No blast marks, he said. Cade joined him. Yeah, not destroyed, just handled. That word hung in the air. Handled, like it had not been attacked. but taken apart by something that knew exactly how it worked. Elias crouched near the ground. Tracks, but not normal ones. They looked like footprints, but too clean, too perfect. Each step was the same shape, the same depth, like they had been made by something copying the idea of walking instead of actually walking. Cade noticed it too. That's wrong. Elias nodded. Very wrong. Cade looked toward the dark horizon again. And we're riding straight toward more of it. Elias stood. Yes. Cade let out a quiet breath. Good. Just making sure we agree. They got back on their sand runners and continued forward. The further they rode, the quieter the desert became. No wind. No small creatures. No distant machine noise. Nothing. After another hour, Cade spoke again, louder this time over the engine noise. You feel that? Elias did not answer right away, because he did feel it. The silence was not natural. It felt heavy, like the land itself was holding its breath. They crested a long ridge, and then they saw it. The outer farms, or what was left of them. A large shield dome covered the settlement, but it was flickering badly. Blue light pulsed weakly across its surface, breaking in places, reforming, then breaking again. Inside the dome, shapes of buildings stood dark and still. No movement, no lights, no life. Cade slowed to a stop at the edge of the ridge. That's not good. Elias studied the dome. Still active. Barely. Which means someone's alive, Cade said. Or something wants it to look that way. Cade glanced at him. You always as cheerful? Only on long rides. They moved down the ridge slowly, weapons ready. As they got closer, more details came into view. The fields outside the dome were damaged, but not burned. Crops had been flattened in long straight lines, like something had walked through them again and again. Equipment lay scattered but not destroyed. It looked wrong, like someone had tried to make it look like a normal raid, and failed. Then Cade saw the first body. He stopped his bike. Elias pulled up beside him. The man lay on his back near the edge of the field. His clothes were torn, his face frozen in a look of shock. But that was not the strange part. His arm was bent the wrong way. Not broken. Placed, like it had been moved after death, by something that did not fully understand how joints worked. Cade stepped off slowly. I don't like this. Elias checked the body without touching it. No visible wounds. Cade frowned. So how did he die? Elias looked around. That's what we're here to find out. They moved closer to the dome entrance. The gate was half open. The control panel beside it was damaged, but again, not blasted. It had been opened manually, then forced wider. Elias looked at Cade. Ready? Cade pulled his rifle up. Never. They stepped inside. The air changed immediately. It felt colder. The inside of the dome was worse than the outside. More bodies. More strange positions. Some sat against walls like they had simply stopped moving. Others lay in the street, untouched but lifeless. One man stood upright against a post, held there by nothing at all, his body stiff, eyes open. Cade walked slowly, turning in a full circle. No blood, no burns, no signs of a fight. Elias spoke quietly. This wasn't a battle. Then what was it? Elias did not answer, because he did not have one. They moved deeper into the settlement. Every step made the silence feel louder. Then, a sound, soft, metal scraping. Both men froze. It came again, from beneath them. Cade looked down. Underground. Elias nodded toward a nearby structure. Storage silo. They moved toward it carefully. The silo door was closed, but not locked. Elias opened it slowly. Darkness inside. Cade switched on a small light and pointed it down. A ladder led into the ground. The sound came again. This time, a voice followed it. Hello? It was weak, careful, but human. Elias called down. Mara Ellison? There was a pause. Then, quickly, yes. Yes, who's there? Elias exchanged a glance with Cade. We heard your message. A rush of movement below. Then, please, come down. Hurry. They climbed down one at a time. The space below was small and cramped, filled with storage crates and emergency supplies. A dim lamp flickered in the corner. Mara Ellison stood there, just like in the recording, but worse now, more tired, more afraid. Beside her, Lyra held tightly to her arm. When Mara saw them clearly, relief hit her so fast she almost collapsed. "You came," she whispered. Cade gave a small nod. "Yeah, we came." Elias looked around the shelter. "You're the only ones left?" Mara swallowed. "That I know of." "What happened here?" Cade asked. Mara hesitated. Then she spoke slowly. "They came 3 nights ago. At first, we thought they were travelers. Lost, maybe. They looked like people, just like us. They spoke calmly. Asked for help. Asked questions." Her hands trembled slightly. But something felt wrong. Their smiles stayed too long. Their eyes didn't move right. Elias listened carefully. Mara continued. "Daniel told everyone to stay cautious. He tried to contact the relay tower. That's when everything changed." "What do you mean?" Cade asked. "They started learning," she said, "watching how we moved, how we spoke. Then they began to copy it." Lyra spoke softly for the first time. "They copied my voice." Both men looked at her. She shrank closer to her mother. "They stood outside," she continued, barely above a whisper, "and called my name. But it didn't sound right." Cade's grip tightened on his rifle. Mara nodded. "They took people one by one. No noise, no struggle, just gone. Daniel tried to fight back. He told me to hide here with Lyra. Then he sent a message." Elias spoke quietly. "And the knock at the end of the recording?" Mara looked toward the ceiling. "They came back earlier than we expected." Silence fell again. Then a sound above. Footsteps. Slow. Even. Not human. Cade looked up. "We're not alone." Elias nodded once. The footsteps moved across the ground above them, then stopped, right above the silo. Mara's breathing became shaky. Lyra pressed her face into her mother's side. Then a voice came from above. Clear, calm, familiar. "Mrs. Ellison," it said. Mara froze, because she recognized the voice. It was her husband's voice. But it was wrong. "You were instructed to remain inside," the voice continued. Cade whispered, "That ain't him." Elias's eyes hardened. Above them, something shifted. Then the voice changed. Not fully, but enough. "We know you are not alone," it said. A pause. Then, "2 more have arrived." Cade slowly raised his weapon. Elias stepped slightly in front of Mara and Lyra. The air felt tight, heavy, like something was closing in. The voice spoke again. Interesting. More footsteps joined the first. Not 1, not 2, many, circling, waiting, learning. Cade gave a small, humorless smile. "Looks like we made new friends." Elias did not smile. He only stared upward, listening. Then he said quietly, "No." Cade glanced at him. "No." Elias's voice was cold now. Not friends. Above them, the thing wearing a man's voice spoke one last time. "Open the door." Elias lifted his rifle. They just made a mistake. Hook. Something was studying them from above, learning fast, copying faster. But what it didn't understand yet was that humans were not just something to observe. They were something that fought back. The silence inside the silo broke with sharp metallic sound. Clang. Something hit the door above. Not hard enough to break it, just enough to test it. Elias Vorn did not move. His rifle was already raised, steady, aimed at the ladder opening. Cade Mercer stood to his left, slightly forward, weapon ready, body tense but controlled. Above them, the voice came again, still wearing the shape of a human tone. Still wrong. "You are not authorized to resist." Cade let out a short breath through his nose. "Yeah, that's not going to happen." Another clang, this time harder. Dust fell from the ceiling. Mara pulled Lyra close, stepping back behind a stack of crates. Her hands shook, but she did not scream. She had already passed that point. Elias spoke quietly without looking back. "Stay behind us." Mara nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Above, the voice shifted again. "Behavior noted," then, adjusting, Cade frowned slightly. "I don't like that word." Elias answered, You shouldn't. The door above them suddenly bent inward, not blasted, not broken, bent, like something was applying pressure slowly, carefully, learning how much force it needed. Metal screamed. Then, crack! The door tore open. One figure dropped down. It landed lightly, too lightly for its size. At first glance, it looked like a man. Same clothes as the others outside. Same build, same face. But the moment it lifted its head, Cade fired. The shot echoed through the silo, loud and sharp. The blast hit the creature directly in the chest. For a normal man, that would have ended everything. But this thing, it stepped back, not from pain, from calculation. The wound in its chest did not bleed normally. Instead, the flesh around it moved, slowly closing, reshaping. Cade blinked once. That's new. Elias didn't waste time. Aim for the head. The creature tilted its head slightly, watching, learning. Then it moved. Fast. Too fast. Elias fired. This time, the shot hit the side of its skull. The impact snapped its head sideways, but it did not fall. Instead, it corrected. Its neck twisted back into place with a slow, unnatural motion. Mara gasped softly. Lyra buried her face into her mother's shoulder. Cade fired again. 2 quick shots. One missed. One hit the creature's arm. The arm broke, but not in a human way. It bent wrong, then slowly pushed itself back into shape. Damage manageable, the creature said. Its voice was changing. Less human now, more layered, like more than one voice was speaking at once. Elias stepped forward. Back, he told Cade. Cade didn't argue. He shifted slightly, giving Elias space. The creature watched this. Not just their movements, their coordination, their choices. You operate together, it said. Elias didn't respond. He moved suddenly, not straight, not predictable. He stepped left, then forward, then right, changing rhythm every second. The creature tried to follow, but it hesitated, just a fraction, and that was enough. Elias fired point-blank into its head. This time, the blast destroyed enough of its structure that it finally dropped to the ground. Still, silent. For 1 second, no one moved. Then, the body twitched. Cade's eyes widened. You gotta be kidding me. The creature's head began to reform slowly. Not fast, but fast enough. Elias spoke, calm but sharp. It learns. It adapts. Don't give it time. Cade nodded. Got it. Above them, more movement, more shadows, more footsteps. Data received came another voice. Adjusting response. Cade looked up. They're watching this. Elias nodded once. Good. Cade frowned. Good. Elias reloaded calmly. Let them learn. Cade stared at him for a second. Then he smiled just a little. Yeah, I see where you're going. The ladder shook. Another creature dropped down. Then another. Now 3. All slightly different. One moved faster. One stood more still. One tilted its head constantly, observing every detail. Cade raised his rifle. Now it's a party. Elias stepped forward again. Keep moving, he said. Cade nodded. The creatures attacked. Not all at once. One moved first. Testing. It rushed Cade directly. Too direct. Cade sidestepped and fired into its side, then shifted position immediately. He didn't stay still. Didn't repeat the same move twice. The creature adjusted mid-motion, but too late. Elias took advantage. He fired from an angle the creature had not predicted. The second creature moved toward Elias, but hesitated again. It was trying to predict him. But Elias didn't move like a pattern. He moved like experience. Like someone who had survived too many fights to be simple. He dropped low, rolled, fired upward, breaking the creature's jaw. The third one stayed back, watching, learning. Unpredictable, it said softly. Cade heard that. Yeah, that's us. The first creature recovered faster this time. It lunged again, but this time it tried something new. It copied Cade's movement. Same step, same angle, same timing. Cade saw it and changed instantly. He moved the opposite way. The creature followed the wrong path. Elias shot it through the head again. This time, Cade didn't wait. He grabbed a nearby metal crate and slammed it down onto the creature's upper body. "Stay down," he muttered. The second creature attacked harder now. Faster. More aggressive. It grabbed Elias's arm, but its grip was wrong. Too tight. Too stiff. Elias twisted free, using the creature's own force against it, and drove a knife into its throat. The blade sank in, but the creature did not react like a human. It only paused. Pain response unnecessary. Elias pulled the blade out and stepped back. "Then let's try something else." He fired again. The third creature finally moved, but not to attack, to observe from a new angle. Cade noticed. That one's learning faster. Elias nodded. "Then we deal with it first." They moved together without speaking. Cade fired to distract. Elias shifted position. The third creature tried to predict both of them. It failed. Elias shot it clean through the head. It dropped instantly. For now, the other two were slower now. Damaged. Adapting, but not fast enough. Cade finished one. Elias finished the other. Silence returned. But not for long. Above them, the voices came again. More now. Clearer. Threat level increasing. Behavior irregular. Risk assessment required. Cade looked up, breathing steady but hard. "They're thinking." Elias answered. "So are we." Mara stepped forward slightly. "What are they?" Elias didn't look at her. "Something that thought we'd be easy." Cade added. "Something that's starting to realize we're not." Lyra looked up quietly. "Are they scared?" Cade paused. Then he gave a small, serious nod. "Yeah, kid, I think they are." Above, movement changed. Not circling now. Pulling back. Creating distance. "Engagement inefficient," one voice said. "Further observation required." Elias frowned slightly. "That's new," he said. Cade nodded. "They're backing off." But neither of them relaxed, because something worse came with that. They were not retreating. They were learning. Outside the silo, the night felt even heavier now, like something larger was watching, waiting. Cade looked at Elias. "This isn't over." Elias shook his head. "No." He looked toward the ceiling, toward whatever waited above. "They came here to study us," he said. Cade smirked slightly. "Yeah." Elias's voice hardened. "Now they're getting a lesson." Above them, in the darkness, something watched the two men carefully, not with anger, not with fear alone, but with something new, respect and caution. For the first time since they arrived on this world, the hunters had found something they could not easily understand, something that did not behave like prey, something that fought back in ways they could not predict, something dangerous. Look, the creatures were no longer just attacking. They were learning, adapting, and preparing. But they had made one critical mistake. They had started to underestimate how dangerous humans become when they refuse to lose. The silence after the fight felt different. Not empty. Not calm. Watching. Elias Vorn stood still in the center of the silo, rifle lowered but ready. Cade Mercer leaned against a crate. Breathing slow, eyes still locked on a ladder above. Mara and Lyra stayed close together behind them. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then Cade broke the silence. They pulled back. Elias nodded. "Yeah." "That's not normal," Cade added. "No," Elias said. "It's not." Because things like that, whatever those creatures were, didn't retreat out of fear alone. They retreated to learn, to prepare, and that made them more dangerous. Above them, faint movement continued, but no attack came. Not yet. Cade pushed himself off the crate. "So what now?" "We sit here and wait for round 2. Elias looked around the silo, then toward Mara. "How long has the dome been failing?" Mara answered quietly. "Since the first night. It's getting weaker every hour." "Power source?" Elias asked. "Main generator under the control building," she said. "But the systems are damaged. Daniel tried to fix them before." She stopped. Elias finished the sentence for her. "Before they took him." Mara nodded slowly. Cade scratched his jaw. "If the dome drops, this place becomes wide open." Elias looked up. "That's what they want." Cade's eyes narrowed. Yeah, makes it easier to watch everything. Elias turned back to Mara. Any transport left? She shook her head. No, they disabled all vehicles, even the emergency rover. Comms. Cade asked. Dead, she said. Relay tower is gone. Cade sighed. So we're stuck. Elias didn't agree. We're not stuck, he said. Cade looked at him. No. Elias's eyes were calm again. Focused. We changed the situation. Cade gave a small grin. Now you're talking. Elias stepped toward the ladder. We move above ground. Mara's face went pale. No, you can't. They're out there. Elias looked back at her. Exactly. Cade understood immediately. You want them to see us. Elias nodded. Mara shook her head. That's suicide. Cade glanced at her. Only if we stand still. Lyra looked up at Elias. Are you going to fight them? Elias met her eyes. Yes, he said simply. She held his gaze for a moment. Then she nodded. Mara closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again with a new kind of strength. What do you need? She asked. Cade blinked. You sure? Mara straightened slightly. This is my home. My husband tried to protect it. I'm not hiding anymore. Elias gave a small nod of respect. Stay here, he said. Lock the hatch behind us. Do not open it unless we say so. Mara agreed. Cade checked his weapon one more time. All right then, let's go make some noise. They climbed the ladder. Slow. Careful. Elias pushed the broken hatch open just enough to look outside. The settlement was still. Too still. But something had changed. They were no longer hiding. They were waiting. Elias climbed out fully. Cade followed. The cold night air hit them hard. The broken dome flickered above, casting weak blue light across the empty streets. Bodies still lay where they had fallen. But now, there were shapes moving in the distance, watching from behind buildings, standing in the open, not attacking, observing. Cade stepped forward, rifle ready. There they are. Elias walked a few steps ahead into the center of the street. Open, visible, clear. Cade frowned. You're really doing this? Elias didn't answer. He just stood there, waiting. It didn't take long. One of them stepped forward. Then another. Then more. They didn't rush. They didn't hide. They approached slowly, like something studying a new kind of animal. One stopped about 10 meters away. It wore the face of a man from the settlement. But the eyes were wrong. Too still, too focused. You continue to resist, it said. Its voice was clearer now, less broken, more stable. Elias spoke back. You continue to make mistakes. The creature tilted its head. Explain, Cade muttered under his breath. You're really talking to it? Elias ignored him. You think we're something simple, Elias said. Something you can learn in a few hours. The creature took another step forward. You are patterns, it said. Patterns can be understood. Elias shook his head slightly. No, he said. We're not. Cade smiled faintly. He's right about that. The creature's eyes moved between them, analyzing. You are inefficient, it continued. You hesitate. You act without logic. Elias's voice became colder. That's where you're wrong. The creature paused. Clarify. Elias took one slow step forward. We don't hesitate because we're weak, he said. We hesitate because we choose. Cade added, and sometimes we choose violence. The creature processed that. Choice introduces error. Elias nodded once. Exactly. Cade's grin widened slightly. And we're full of errors. For the first time, the creature did not respond immediately. It was thinking, processing, adjusting. Behind it, more of them gathered, watching, learning. Then, risk level updated, the creature said. Human resistance exceeds projection. Cade raised his weapon slightly. Told you. Elias lifted his rifle too. Here's the part you didn't calculate, he said. The creature focused on him. State, variable. Elias's voice dropped. We don't stop. Cade pulled a small device from his belt. And we plan ahead, he added. The creature noticed the device. Unknown object. Elias didn't move. Yeah, he said. Unknown. Cade pressed a button. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the ground shook. A deep explosion tore through the far side of the settlement. Fire burst upward, lighting the night. Another explosion followed. Then another. Hidden charges, placed carefully, strategically, across the entire area. The creatures reacted instantly, not with panic, but with confusion. Unexpected, one voice said. Environment altered. Elias stepped forward through the smoke. We've been setting that up since we arrived, he said. Cade added, you were watching us. You just didn't understand what you were seeing. More explosions hit. Closer now. The flickering dome sparked violently. Then it collapsed. The blue light vanished. The sky opened above them. For a moment, everything froze. Then a new sound filled the air. A deep hum. From above, both men looked up. A massive shape hovered high in the sky. Dark, silent, watching. Cade whistled softly. There it is. Elias's eyes hardened. The real problem. A beam of pale light formed beneath the ship, reaching down toward the creatures. Extraction. The creature in front of them looked up. Withdrawal initiated, it said. Cade shook his head. Oh, no, you don't. Elias lifted his rifle again. You don't get to walk away from this. The creature looked back at him. For the first time, there was hesitation, not confusion, not curiosity. Something else. Humans are not prey, it said slowly. Elias didn't blink. No, he said. We're not. The beam intensified. Some of the creatures began to rise. Cade activated the last trigger. The biggest charge. Hidden under the main control building. The explosion hit like thunder. The ground cracked. The beam flickered. The ship above shifted slightly. For the first time, it reacted, not just observed. Reacted. The beam shut off. The creatures dropped back to the ground. Silence followed. Heavy. Final. Then the ship began to move. Slowly at first. Then faster. Pulling away. Leaving. Cade watched it go. They're running. Elias kept his eyes on the sky. They're learning, he said. The last of the creatures stood still. Then one spoke. Engagement postponed. Humans will be reevaluated. Then they moved back into the shadows. Gone. Just like that. The fight was over. For now, the night grew quiet again. But it was not the same silence. Cade lowered his weapon slowly. Well, he said, that was fun. Elias didn't answer. He just stood there, watching the empty sky. Behind them, the silo hatch opened. Mara stepped out, holding Lyra close. She looked around at the broken settlement, then at the two men. You saved us, she said softly. Cade shook his head. We bought you time. Elias finally turned. That's how it starts, he said. Mara nodded. Lyra looked up at him. Will they come back? Elias didn't lie. Yes, Cade added. But next time, he looked toward the horizon. We'll be ready. Far above, the ship disappeared into the stars. But its last signal echoed silently across space. A warning, a message, a change. Humans are not prey. Back on the frontier, Kestrel 9, two cowboys stood in the dust once more. Not brooding now, not silent, waiting. Because out here, when something comes hunting,